Greetings, everyone. Today we'll be looking at some good evidence on the question of whether or not the Bible condones or condemns the drinking of alcohol. In recent times, many people have rediscovered the verse found in Revelations 18:23 that reads, quote, "And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived." The ending of that verse mentions the word sorceries, which in Greek is pharmakia, previously pharmakeia, which refers to a drug, spell-giving potion, druggist, prisoner, by extension a magician or a sorcerer. A variation of these two terms is pharmakon, which is a complex term meaning sacrament, remedy, poison, talisman, cosmetic, perfume, or intoxicant. This is where the modern terms pharmacology, pharmaceuticals, and pharmacy emerge from. Drugs that are sold at a pharmacy not only alter your body physiologically, but also alter your body mentally. Mind-altering drugs aren't just something we get illicitly for recreation at a club or at a festival, but something many across the world buy at their corner store pharmacy in order to alter their mood and body. It is no wonder that many pharmacies in the past, and even to this day, also sell alcohol to accomplish the same thing. The Bible gives us many verses that warn us against mind alteration, including 1 Peter 4:7, quote, "But the end of all things is at hand. Be ye therefore sober, and watch unto prayer." Ephesians 5:18, quote, "And be not drunk with wine, wherein is excess, but be filled with the Spirit." Galatians 5 verses 20 through 21, quote, "Idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revellings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God." 1 Peter 1, verse 13, quote, "Wherefore gird up the loins of your mind, be sober, and hope to the end for the grace that is to be brought unto you at the revelation of Jesus Christ." It is not by chance here that Peter tells the church to remain alert and sober. Drug and alcohol abuse were common, even in his day, in pagan worship. Anything that alters the mind, drugs, alcohol, prescribed or otherwise, is to be avoided. Trying to escape the problems of life by getting high or drunk just opens the door to making things worse. Think of your soul as having layers. Every time you engage in these reckless activities, a layer of your soul is pulled away. In time, your soul will be eventually unraveled, and that is when demon possession and destruction will take place. Drugs used to alter the state of mind is and has always been a part of occult pagan rituals. Is it any wonder that the secular mainstream pushes and glamorizes drugs in shows, movies, advertisements, and media? Is it any coincidence that alcohol is called spirits, that they call alcohol booze, a sound a ghost makes, or that alcohol bottles are marked with a triple X, 666 in cartoons and in ads? In this video, I will be reading excerpts out of Dr. Lorraine Day's book, Who Rewrote the Bible? How and Why the Translators Have Deceived the Whole World by Deliberately Changing the Truth of the Bible. I will be reading out of the chapter titled, Does the Bible Approve of Drinking Wine? In this chapter, Dr. Day makes the case that the translators of the Bible inadvertently or purposefully used unspecific words when referring to wine. She points out that these words, in both the New and Old Testament, Greek and Hebrew respectively, could actually be used to refer to both alcoholic old wine and young, non-alcoholic wine, also known as grape juice and must. I hope you all enjoy. Does the Bible approve of drinking wine? Most Christian churches teach the Bible approves of drinking fermented wine and other alcoholic beverages in moderation. By doing so, the churches choose to ignore many Bible texts that reveal the damaging effects of alcohol and God's command that it may not be used in any amount. It is no secret that the vast majority of pastors, theologians, and Bible scholars enjoy imbibing alcoholic beverages. In fact, one denomination in particular is notorious for its leaders' consumption of alcohol, namely the Catholic Church, with priests, bishops, archbishops, and even popes exhibiting a major propensity for drinking wine and other alcoholic drinks. Also, virtually every church and denomination uses fermented alcoholic wine during its communion service. Does the Bible contradict itself? The Bible seems to speak about wine in a contradictory way. On the one hand, it unreservedly disapproves of the use of wine, as in the following passage. "And the Lord spake unto Aaron, saying, Do not drink wine, nor strong drink, thou, nor thy sons with thee, when ye go out into the tabernacle of the congregation, lest ye die. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations. And that ye may put difference between holy and unholy, and between unclean and clean. And that ye may teach the children of Israel all the statutes which the Lord hath spoken unto them by the hand of Moses. Leviticus 10:8-11. On the other hand, the Bible appears to approve wholeheartedly of wine as a divine blessing for people to enjoy. In the Bible's account of Isaac giving the inheritance blessing to Jacob in place of the firstborn Esau, Isaac, who was then very old and almost blind, spoke to Jacob thinking he was Esau. Jacob had deceived his father by preparing a different meat to taste like venison, by putting the skin of a young goat on the back of his hand and arms to make him feel hairy like Esau, by wearing Esau's clothing that carried the scent of the hunter that Esau was. And his father Isaac said unto him, Jacob, thinking it was Esau, come near now, and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his clothing, and blessed him, and said, See, the smell of my son is the smell of a field, which the Lord hath blessed. Therefore God gave thee of the dew of heaven, and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Genesis 27:26-28. The solution to this dilemma by the churches is to teach that the Bible does, indeed, approve of drinking fermented wine and other alcoholic beverages, but only in moderation. But is this the correct interpretation of God's Word? It is always important to look at the whole Bible when deciding a doctrinal or moral issue, not just take a text here or there out of context. What does God teach about our body, our mind, and our health? Whether therefore you eat or drink, or whatsoever you do all to the glory of God. 1 Corinthians 10:31. If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. The temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. 1 Corinthians 3:17. In the Old Testament, in Leviticus 10:8-11, recorded above, God told Aaron that if he or his sons drank wine or other strong drink when going into the tabernacle temple to perform their priestly duties, they would die. Now, in the New Testament, God tells us that our body is the temple. It is reasonable to assume that the same directives from God apply, and that we should not put wine or other strong drink into our body, which is now God's temple. Therefore, take care to follow the commands, decrees, and laws I give you today. If you pay attention to these laws and are careful to follow them, then the Lord your God will keep his covenant of love with you, as he swore to your forefathers. The Lord will keep you free from every disease. Deuteronomy 7:11-15. God has promised to heal all our diseases. Psalm 103, verse 3. And to keep us free from every disease, but only if we follow his commands, decrees, and laws that he has given us. Deuteronomy 7:11-15. Therefore, our state of health is directly dependent on how we treat our body and mind, including what we eat and drink. Does the Bible endorse drinking wine and other alcoholic beverages? The Bible does not contradict itself. The Bible teaches that we are to eat and drink to the glory of God, and that our body is the temple of God's Spirit, and that he that destroys God's temple, him will God destroy. With all that we've learned about the destructive effects of alcohol, even in moderation, it would be impossible for Jesus Christ to drink fermented wine himself, or to endorse it for our use. Is the biblical use of the word wine limited to a fermented alcoholic beverage? The word wine has been used for centuries as a generic term to describe the juice of the grape, whether fermented or unfermented. For example, in 1955, Funk and Wagnall's New Standard Dictionary of the English Language defines wine as follows: the fermented juice of the grape, in loose language, the juice of the grape, whether fermented or not. The 1971 version of the New Webster's Encyclopedic Dictionary of the English Language defines must as wine or juice pressed from the grapes but not fermented. This definition clearly equates wine with grape juice. The 1896 Webster's International Dictionary of the English Language defines wine as the expressed juice of grapes, especially when fermented, a beverage prepared from grapes by squeezing out their juice and usually allowing it to ferment. This definition recognizes that the basic meaning of wine is the expressed juice of grapes, which is usually, but not always, allowed to ferment. The problem is that many, if not most, people have taken the usual meaning of this word, whether in Hebrew, yayin, Greek, oinos, Latin, vinum, or English, wine, as an intoxicating beverage, and have made it the only definition of the word. That is inaccurate both biblically and secularly. In 1748, Benjamin Marin's A New English Dictionary defines wine as the juice of the grape. Notice that there is no reference to fermentation. A clear example of the use of the term wine to refer to unfermented grape juice is provided by William Whiston's translation of Josephus' Antiquities of the Jews, first published in 1737. Referring to Joseph's interpretation of the cupbearer's dream, Josephus writes, "He therefore said that in his sleep he saw 3 clusters of grapes hanging upon 3 branches of a vine, large already and ripe for gathering, and that he squeezed them into a cup which the king held in his hand, and when he had strained the wine, he gave it to the king to drink. Thou sayest that thou didst squeeze this wine from 3 clusters of grapes with thine hands, and that the king received it. Know therefore that the vision is for thy good." Winston uses wine as a proper rendering for fresh, unfermented grape juice. Obviously, because in this time, wine meant either fermented or unfermented grape juice. These samplings of definitions of wine from older English dictionaries suggest that when the King James Version of the Bible was produced, its translators must have understood wine to refer to both fermented and unfermented wine. In view of this fact, the King James Version's uniform translation of Hebrew yayin and Greek's oinos as wine was an acceptable translation at the time, since in those days the term could mean either fermented or unfermented wine. There are many secular examples of the Greek word for wine, oinos, referring to the freshly squeezed juice of the grape. For example, Proclus, the Platonic philosopher who lived in the 5th century, in his annotation to Hesiod's Works and Days, explained how the grapes were first exposed to the sun for 10 days, then to the shade for 10 days, and finally they treaded them and squeezed out the wine, oinon. Here, the freshly squeezed juice of the grapes is explicitly called oinos, wine. Nicander of Colophon speculates that oinos derives from the name of a man, Oeneus, who first squeezed grapes into a cup, and Oeneus first squeezed it out into hollow cups and called it oinos.